A little combat music, if you please. 1. You're like a dream come true. 2. Just wanna play with you. 3. 'Cause it's plain to see that you're the only game for me. And 4. Repeat steps 1 through 3. 5. Make you fall in love with me. And all the games that came out have been fun. Now we start back at 1. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello there, fellow combatants. It is I, DWC, Daniel William Clark, also known as your ultimate Mortal Kombat Fanatic, as voted on by GameSpot.com and Ed Boon himself. So, in the words of the great Cody Rhodes, what do you guys want to talk about? Yes, indeed, we have quite a lot to talk about today, I presume. And for good reason, because at the time of recording this, there are not one, but 2 significant official visual updates from the source, being the great people at Netherrealm Studios, regarding the next adventure in the illustrious Mortal Kombat franchise. And oh my goodness, do I have a lot to say. So, for those of you who might not have caught my guest appearance on the Arcane Pains podcast, and for those of you who do not regularly watch me on Twitch, you might have missed my initial thoughts that I gave on the things that I would like to see and not like to see in this next Mortal Kombat game. So before we proceed, I will give you a little summary of my thoughts on my thoughts in that regard right there. As you can see, I'm all ready. I got my Mortal Kombat t-shirt on right here, and it is after Labor Day, it is after Memorial Day here in the United States, so you know what that means. We can go back to wearing all the white shirts that we want. I mean, honestly, that's never really been a deterrence for me. I've always just marched to the beat of my own drum when it comes to what fashions I'm in the mood to wear on what particular day, but it's official now, so we can have at it all we want to. Kind of funny, right? Mortal Kombat, a game which is very heavy on the blood, prints t-shirts that appear on white fabric. Yeah, they knew what they were doing. Okay, so, before I proceed, I'm going to give you a summary, like I said, on the things I would like to see in the new Mortal Kombat game, and the things I might not really care to see. Beginning with the things I would like to see. Well, going off of the notion that this game takes place after the events of Mortal Kombat 11, specifically Mortal Kombat 11's aftermath story, where Liu Kang, now a fire god, has defeated Shang Tsung in a climactic battle to decide who controls all of reality, and he now goes on ahead and reshapes time and reality the way he sees fit. So for those of you who might have missed the ending of Mortal Kombat 11, I can only ask why. How did you let that happen, man? Come on, get with the program. Well, for those of you who either forgot or missed out on it, here's what happened. Liu Kang, like I said, now a fire god, had defeated his old nemesis Shang Tsung in an excellent full circle battle, I guess you could say, where they were the main event of the original Mortal Kombat game, and they ended up becoming the main event of what we thought at that point would probably be the last Mortal Kombat game. Well, I guess in some respects it was, but in that particular trilogy right there, the NetherRealm Studios trilogy, if you will. The trilogy that began with Mortal Kombat 9, which was a reboot of the timeline, a reboot and a sequel in one. Think Star Trek 2009, if you will. Followed by Mortal Kombat 10, or Mortal Kombat X, if you will. And then finally culminating with Mortal Kombat 11. So, what happened after that was, Liu Kang took Kronika's crown, put it onto his head, and it looked pretty good on him, I have to say. And he went ahead and he reshaped reality. And next thing you know, we are in the time of the great Kung Lao, before he enters the Mortal Kombat tournament. So it was safe to say that unless Netherrealm Studios really wanted to throw us a curveball and have Shang Tsung's ending be the canon one, I mean, hey, it wouldn't be the first time they did something like that. Remember Mortal Kombat Deception's intro? There you go. But Liu Kang has now become the mentor of the great Kung Lao. So it stood to reason that the next Mortal Kombat game would very well take place in that time period. And I'm sticking to that belief. I still, until unequivocally proven otherwise, I am still of the mindset that the game will take place during the prime days of the great Kung Lao, only this time with Liu Kang as his mentor, bringing all the knowledge that he has of past Mortal Kombat experiences and tournaments into this timeline with him. It's the new era, according to Liu Kang. Or, to use a wrestling reference, it's a new day. Yes, it is. So, here's what I would like to see, in addition to that being the main setting. I would like to see... Well, let me also preface this by saying that the thing I would like to see might veer a little bit on the controversial side of things. So, you've been warned. I would like to see... with the exception of the characters who it would make perfect sense to be in this new game, in this new storyline, in this new timeline, this new era, like Fire God Liu Kang, makes sense because it's his reality now. The Great Kung Lao, because other than Fire God Liu Kang, he was the last one that we saw. Perhaps Raiden to be like an advisor, because if you remember in the regular Mortal Kombat 11 ending, Raiden is no longer the God of Thunder. He's given those powers to Liu Kang now. That's right, he's Fire God Liu Kang, but he also has Raiden's Thunder God powers as well. So he's kind of a hybrid god. That's cool. But Raiden would act as an advisor, so I guess Raiden's retired now. I guess you could say, so he's just going to be an advisor to Liu Kang here. And a couple of other key characters, such as Sub-Zero and Scorpion, which I will elaborate on in a little bit. But where I'm going with this is, and again, this may sound controversial to some, especially since there are so many people speculating as to who they think is going to be in the game, what characters they'd like to see return for the game. Well, me personally, aside from, like I said, the characters it would make sense to see back, Liu Kang, the Great Kung Lao, Raiden, Sub-Zero, and Scorpion, I personally would like to see a whole new cast of characters. And the reason is simple. This game, Mortal Kombat 1, as it's now going to be called, is another reboot and sequel in one. It also makes for another potential safe entry point into the series for those who might not have gotten a chance to play it before. So I look at this as a sort of checkpoint in the series. Like Mortal Kombat 9 was another such checkpoint in the Mortal Kombat series. I guess you can make the argument that Deadly Alliance was also, because enough time had elapsed between the previous, series of events, beginning with, the original Mortal Kombat game and going up through Mortal Kombat 4. And now we definitely have, both in situation and even game title, a brand new continuity, a brand new series of events. Heck, it's all in the name. You know what they say, what's in a name? Well, more than you might think. Or, in the words of Raiden in one of the Mortal Kombat movies, more than anything I know. So, this game is going to be called Mortal Kombat 1. So people who are not used to the Mortal Kombat series may very well think to themselves, is this the first game? They would, of course, be incorrect unless they did the research and such, but you could potentially interpret it as that. Like, okay, if you haven't gotten into the series yet, now's a good time, because now we're going to do a whole bunch of stuff right here. It's going to be a fresh start, and you're not going to feel like you got lost so far. You know what I mean? You're not going to feel like you're coming into the series, it's smack dab in the middle of a storyline, and you're going to be all mystified and everything like that. So I think that's one key reason why a new cast would be good, because you're introducing everybody who's new to the series to new characters. They don't have any preconceived notions as to who should be in the game and who shouldn't. Number two, Again, assuming that this does, and until proven otherwise by the source themselves, Netherrealm Studios, by way of the game itself when we get to play it, until proven otherwise, I'm going to assume that this does in fact take place during the time of the Great Kung Lao. So, to put a whole bunch of characters who did not make their Mortal Kombat debuts until well after the heyday of the Great Kung Lao, we gotta think maybe decades, if not centuries, wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. So this goes back to what I was saying before regarding Sub-Zero and Scorpion, because you might be wondering, well, Daniel, Sub-Zero and Scorpion, they were introduced in the original Mortal Kombat game, and they were only about 32 years old each. And figuring that game took place in the 90s, and the Great Kung Lao's time took place in the 1890s, or maybe 1790s, or something like that. How do you figure they would fit in? Again, there's actually a very simple way you could go about that. A very simple explanation for that. Sub-Zero and Scorpion are code names. They're not the legal government names of the men underneath the masks. Don't forget, for a long time, we didn't know Sub-Zero and Scorpion's real names in the Mortal Kombat series. We just knew them as Sub-Zero and Scorpion. We didn't know, oh, that's Bi-Han Sub-Zero. Oh, that's Kuai Liang Sub-Zero. Oh, that's Joe Blow Sub-Zero. Oh, that's John Doe Sub-Zero. You know, we didn't know that. And we didn't mind, either. When Sub-Zero appeared in Mortal Kombat 2, until you beat the game with him, it was not made clear as to whether or not this was the same man from MK1 or if it was somebody different. We would get our answer after beating the game. Yeah, it worked. So, it could easily be explained that this Sub-Zero and this Scorpion are ancestors of Bi-Han, Kuai Liang, and Hanzo Hasashi. Because you gotta figure the Lin Kuei clan has been around for many, 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 many years. They weren't invented just yesterday. I mean, remember in Mortal Kombat 11, you have one of the pre-fight dialogues between Sub-Zero A and Sub-Zero B, should you decide to do a mirror match between them. The grandfather, defeat me to earn my mantle. So, there you go. It could be Sub-Zero's grandfather, right? The Sub-Zero brothers' his grandfather. And likewise, Hanzo Hasashi would not be born just yet. So you could have this be an ancestor of his. Maybe the founder of the Shirai Ryu clan, Takeda. So now what does this mean? Does this mean that the Lin Kuei and the Shirai Ryu are friends? That would be an interesting callback to the Mortal Kombat Legacy series, where it seemed like there was a truce between the two clans. And it would be interesting, too, because the Shirai Ryu were sort of a splinter faction. They were sort of born out of, mocking the Lin Kuei. That's what it says in their original bios from the very first game, where the yellow uniform of the Lin Kuei, of the Shirai Ryu was meant to mock the Lin Kuei blue. So now perhaps you could have the two of them coexisting. You know, that kind of a thing. Does this mean they're going to wear the same colors? Does this mean they'll wear different colors? Or do you still want to have them be rivals? You could do that too. But again, Sub-Zero and Scorpion makes perfect sense to be in the game, and you could have them be, you could have the characters with the names be in the game, but have them be different individuals. Because let's be honest here, a Mortal Kombat game without Sub-Zero and Scorpion is like a Street Fighter game without Ryu and Ken. Is like a Fatal Fury game without Andy and Terry Bogard. It's just that it would feel like something is missing. A very key element is missing. So Sub-Zero and Scorpion are definitely the two cornerstone characters of the Mortal Kombat franchise. So that's a perfect excuse to put them in, you know? And another reason why I think it would be really a good idea to have a whole new cast, aside from the individuals I mentioned, Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Liu Kang, Great Kung Lao, and such, would be because it would keep the series fresh. You know, I understand we all have our favorites. You know, I'm a big Cyrax fan myself. But if you just keep on putting the same characters into the games over and over and over again, it kind of gets stale after a while. It's one of those things where you think you want it, but when it comes down to it, you might decide for yourself, gee, this feels a little monotonous. I feel like I've done this already. But maybe that's not the case with fighting game fans. Maybe they just want the characters they want in perpetuity, and they always want an excuse to have them be brought back. Well, again, I understand it there, and like I said, when Cyrax is in the game, yeah, I love to play as him. He becomes my main. But if he's not in the game, though, then I'll find somebody else to play as. Like if Cyrax isn't available, I'll pick Sub-Zero. If Sub-Zero, for whatever reason, is not available, I'll pick Sonya. If she's not available, then I might discover somebody new. Ironically, that's actually how I discovered Cyrax, because when I was playing the original Mortal Kombat 3, Sub-Zero was in the game, but Scorpion was not. There was, however, a character named Cyrax. He wore yellow. He was a robot which had taken the place of the ninja characters up to that point, and he had a maneuver which acted very much the same as Scorpion's. A projectile that you throw at the opponent, and then upon catching them, reels them in for a free hit. So I said, all right, let's give Cyrax a try. Let's see how he can do. And I ended up loving him. I ended up utilizing him a lot more often, and next thing you know, he becomes my MK3 main. When I would later find out that Cyrax and Scorpion were in fact not one and the same, it didn't bother me at all. I just kept on using him. I said, all right, cool. But you see, that's the thing. It's because Netherrealm Studios / Midway has introduced new characters to us every so often that they've become popular. I just feel like not doing so. I feel like just giving us the same people again and again, even if it has been a while since we've seen them last, just kind of stunts the series' growth. I mean, you want an ironic example? Look at Street Fighter, right? How many times did we get? How many different versions of Street Fighter 2 did we get? We got Street Fighter 2 The World Warrior, Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Super Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Then finally what we get? Ultra Street Fighter 2, the Final Challengers. And then after that it was Street Fighter 2, we promise this is the last edition. Guaranteed. Yeah, and we kept on getting the same characters. So eventually when Street Fighter 3 had been released, how many of those Street Fighter 2 characters initially were seen in Street Fighter 3, or the first version of Street Fighter 3, because even those they did subsequent editions of. But how many Street Fighter 2 alumni did we see in Street Fighter 3? By my count, 3. Ryu, Ken, and Chun-Li. All the other characters were brand spanking new. Some of them might have been, XPs of previous characters, like Elena was a female combatant, Street Fighter, a female Street Fighter, but who had moves very similar to that of Dalsim. We've even seen this in Mortal Kombat as well, right? When Mortal Kombat 4 happened, we got a new antagonist in the form of Shinnok. In terms of his moveset, though, he was Shang Tsung all over again. Only instead of morphing into other characters, he'd just take on their movesets. But this gave us the opportunity to be introduced to a whole new cast of characters. So I thought that was great. You know, it gave it its own identity. See, that's the thing right there. It gave the game its own identity. Mortal Kombat Deception. Let me come back to that, if I may. You look at the Conquest mode of Mortal Kombat Deception, furthering my point about Sub-Zero and Scorpion having ancestors who may have worn similar uniforms. In the Earthrealm Village, when you're teenage Shujinko, you're walking through and you see a character who at first glance you think is MK1 Sub-Zero, but it's actually somebody different. Even in the behind-the-scenes videos, they describe him as either Sub-Zero or an ancestor of Sub-Zeros. So it could work. I mean, you know, if it looks like a Lin Kuei, and it talks like a Lin Kuei, and it fights like a Lin Kuei, it's probably a Lin Kuei, to paraphrase a famous saying. So, yeah, it definitely would work. I mean, it's like, yeah, okay, it's Sub-Zero and Scorpion. Do you really care if it's Kuai Liang, Bi-Han, or Hanzo Hasashi? Or do you just want somebody who fits the bill? I mean, there you go. So, yeah, again, having a new roster, I really feel would keep the material fresh. Now, you could, you know, like I said, characters who it would make sense to be, like familiar characters who it would make sense to be in the new game in the earlier timeline. Maybe, okay, I'll think of another character. How about Kitana? You know, she's 10,000 years old, but she only looks like she's 25 Earthrealm years of age. And in one of the MK11 endings, she joins Liu Kang in his new reality. Well, you know, this is Liu Kang's sandbox now. He can make his reality however he wants, you know, so he can probably have Kitana come back and be his wife if he wants to, you know? That type of thing. So, that's cool. But, you know, assuming that he's going to assuming that he's going to keep everything the way it is right there, keep everybody's birth years the same, then it would make sense for Kitana to be there. It would make sense for the Great Kung Lao to be there. It would make sense if you wanted to bring in some other characters. Yeah, it would make sense for Reptile and maybe a couple of others who are thousands of years old and such. But again, I would want it to make story sense. Now, look, don't get me wrong. If they do include every familiar MK character from A through Z, I'm not going to get mad. I'm not going to boycott the game and be like, oh, this game stinks now. They took the cheap and lazy way out. I'm just telling you that that's what I would do if I were in charge. I would see this as a perfect opportunity to really give the series a fresh start and give it its own identity. Especially since you're calling it Mortal Kombat 1. Well, yeah, let's really hit the reset button on this. Let's go full throttle here. So that's what I'd like to see. One thing I would not like to see, honestly, and I know this is probably just where games are headed these days, but I got to be completely frank with you. I do not want to see the return of online-only saving of your data. I cannot stand that feature. I prefer the days where you would save your data to a memory card or like the console's built-in memory, and then if you ever decide you want to start all over again, all you gotta do is erase the file and boom, you're right back at the beginning. You can redo your win-loss record over again. You can go back to unlocking stuff for the first time and relive that joy all over again. That kind of thing. Whereas in MK11, and I think MK10 did this too, once you did something, it was done. If you won this many matches and lost that many, that's your permanent record. If you unlock that already, you ain't ever going ahead and doing that again unless you create a whole separate account. I just cannot stand that feature. I just don't like it. I'm sorry. It's just not my thing. Which brings me to another feature that I hope does not return. I'm alright with the crypt returning. I'm not alright with the pure random nature of where the items are in the game. Like that was one of the things that plagued MK11 in my honest opinion. I knew what items I wanted to go for, and instead I found myself gathering up a whole bunch of items that I personally couldn't care less about before finally getting the ones that I wanted. So that's another feature that I really hope does not return. There's still time to change your minds, guys. I mean, do we ever get an answer as to what will happen to MK11 when they eventually shut those servers down? Are we going to be stuck with whatever we don't have? Or are they just going to say, all right, here's everything. Here's the rest of the stuff that you might not have gotten. So those are the things I want to see and don't want to see. I mean, there's not a whole lot I don't want to see in it. I guess you could connect that with what I do want to see. I do want to see fresh faces. I don't want to see just the same game over and over and over again. Because, even though fighting game fans have their favorites, I do too. But I'd be alright with them taking a shot. Because honestly, that's what's kept the series interesting. Yeah, sure, the blood and gore is what brought it to the dance and made it popular amongst the masses. But its ability to insert, the series' ability to insert fresh new faces at the right times, and then, give us some familiar ones to pad things out, also helped out a great deal. I mean, you look at MK Deception again. By that point, it had been, 9 years since we had seen Nightwolf, Sindel, Ermac, Cabal, and a couple of other familiar faces. By then, the fans were ready for them to come back. They were ready to see them again. Whereas in the last 3 straight games, even after you wrote Melina out of MK10, you just bring her back into MK11 by way of DLC. I mean, that's a separate topic in and of itself, but the same argument could be made about Baraka. Now, Baraka was brought into the main story, so you kind of figure, all right, they did that for a reason. They knew going in that they wanted to bring him in, so be it. But yeah, I mean, it's easy to just keep on giving us the same characters and coming up with whatever throwaway reason you want to have them back. But as a writer myself, this is the type of thing I'd like to see. That's what made the different Star Wars series is so fascinating, right? I almost feel like this is a Star Wars situation where when the prequel trilogy came out, initially there was so many people flabbergasted about, where are all of our favorite characters? Where's the Empire? Who are these alien dudes with the battle droids? We don't want them. We want the Empire. And it ended up getting a lot of unjust criticism. But what they didn't realize at the time was that George Lucas and all the other creators were world building, as they say. They were making the universe bigger. Because that's the thing. If you just keep on using the same characters and connecting them all together again, the same pool of characters, it keeps the universe small. And I fear that Mortal Kombat may be in danger of that too. That, okay, yeah, we love these characters, but if you keep on just reusing them and finding whatever throwaway excuse you can to have them when they really might not necessarily belong in terms of the story, it just keeps the universe too small. So I want to see some world building. It's worked for you guys before and paid off. MK3 in particular was a huge gamble, taking it out of that Shaolin setting, that fantasy setting of Outworld, and bringing it to a more, Western setting in the United States and such like that, where you got the combatants fighting in New York City and such, and getting rid of the ninja characters, taking ninja characters' masks off and such like that. That took a lot of courage, but man, did it pay off, and it introduced us to a whole new cream of combat crop in terms of characters and settings and story ideas. So, to paraphrase a past Midway franchise, no one else would have had the guts, but they did. All right, so we're going to watch a couple of things today. First thing we're going to do, like I said, I've already talked about this in my Twitch streams and on Arcane Pains podcast, but first thing I'm going to do is to rewatch the original Mortal Kombat 1 trailer that came out, and I'll give my thoughts on it as we're going along, okay? That's one more thing, too. With the game being called Mortal Kombat 1, speaking of Star Wars before, I now find myself worrying, are we going to have a Star Wars Battlefront problem here? Oh man, I loved Star Wars Battlefront 2. It's one of my favorite games of all time. But now you got to ask, which Star Wars Battlefront 2? The 2005 version or the 2017 version? So now here we go. Mortal Kombat 1 is a great game. Which Mortal Kombat 1? The original one from 1992? Or the one that's set to come out in 2023? Ah! Alright, so without further ado, let's go on ahead and start the Mortal Kombat 1 announcement trailer. Here we go. Right off the bat, they hit a home run here. Likely mature, 17 plus, may contain content inappropriate for children, according to the ESRB.org. You think? I like that, though. It always cracks me up every time I see a trailer for a new game, and it says product not yet rated. Meanwhile, there's a 98.6% chance it is going to get a particular type of rating. It's like, it's a Super Mario game. Of course it's going to be E for everyone. It's a Legend of Zelda game. Likely it'll be T for teen. Or maybe E10. It's a Mortal Kombat game. Unless we're talking about Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, highly likely it's going to be M for mature. So, good start. I like the way it started already. Alright, here we go. Just push play.
It is time.
WB Games presents a Netherrealm Studios production.
Time to wake up to a new reality. To a blank canvas that I have painted in with warmth and peace. In my new era, the choice is yours. Whether to live in quiet serenity or bloody strife. To dwell in joyous prosperity or bitter rivalry. You can face each other as sworn enemies, or united as brothers. But a storm is brewing, and soon you will discover that even in this new era, one constant remains. There is always something worth fighting for. You have chosen to defy peace. Then you have chosen war with a god.
Mortal Kombat 1. It's in our blood. September 19th. Pre-order to get Shang Tsung and beta access. Pre-order on May 19th at 10 p.m. That is totally cool. Alright. So, let's go on ahead and backtrack this, shall we? First, we open up on a great close-up shot of Fire God Liu Kang. I am talking directly at you, viewer. I know you want to see all the combat action that this game will have to offer. Well, you're in luck, because that is what I will present to you right now.
It is time.
Very cool. Sounds like the same voice actor for Liu Kang as well, so that's good. Keeps good continuity. There we go. Looks like Raiden right here. And yeah, he looks like a depowered Raiden. So again, acting as an advisor now to Liu Kang, as per his offer in the original version of Mortal Kombat 11's ending. So there you go. That's cool.
Time to wake up. To a new reality. To a blank canvas that I have painted in with warmth and peace.
And perhaps even a few happy trees. Well done, Liu Kang. You are now officially the Bob Ross of Earthrealm.
In my new era, the choice is yours.
Here we have the great Kung Lao. Notice the rather softer looking hat that he has, made of, was that bamboo or so? I guess that's probably his training hat, if you will. You know, that's not the metal-rimmed one, the buzzsaw-like hat that we're used to seeing him have. So perhaps that's his training hat. Just like how you have swordsmen who they fight with regular metal swords when it's time for actual combat, but when they're in training, they fight with the their kendo, right? Their bamboo swords, if you will. So there you go.
Whether to live in quiet serenity.
And there he is, opposite the field to Raiden.
Or bloody strife.
Now this is interesting. We have Kitana. Again, she's 10,000 years old, so it makes sense for her to be in this new reality during the days of the Great Kung Lao. But take a gander at this, if you will.
To dwell in joyous prosperity.
Here she is, riding in a chariot. And Melina is right there with her. And look at that. She still has her gnarly Tarkatan teeth, which she then covers with her mask. So this is the first question mark for me. I'm thinking to myself, okay, what's going on here? Perhaps now in this new reality, Melina is an official, you know, royal guard for Kitana. Maybe, given the fact that Melina was conceived as a clone of Kitana, perhaps Kitana's double, perhaps Melina is now serving as Kitana's double, her decoy, if you will, for when they go out into potentially dangerous situations, right? Like Melina could be the Sabe to Kitana's Queen Amidala. There you go. Also, I mean, I could sit here and say, well, they looked for a reason to bring Melina back because she's so over with the fans and everything. Yeah, potentially. But Liu Kang, it could also be argued, gave her a new purpose. And perhaps, you know, even though when things started out between Kitana and Melina, there was a lot of bitter resentment. Like, Kitana's like, you're just an abomination version of me. And Melina's like, I'll stop at nothing to get your throne. I think over time, they may have developed a mutual respect for one another, like a warrior's respect of some kind, you know? So maybe Kitana thought, you know, Melina, we might not get along, but you fight very well. You are a strong combatant, and hey, if I could have a legit twin sister, I would want it to be you. You know, maybe Katana's MK11 friendship was trying to tell us something that didn't occur to us until now. Maybe it was trying to tell us something a little bit deeper, right? That she and Melina can coexist. They can get along. I mean, you see that happen in wrestling all the time. Bitter enemies all of a sudden start teaming up. It's like, what? Where did that come from? So, how about it?
You can face each other as sworn enemies, or united as brothers.
So now here it looks like Scorpion and Sub-Zero, again, potential ancestors of Hanzo Hasashi, Bihan, and Kuai Liang, are on the same page with one another. So maybe the Shirai Ryu and the Lin Kuei have kind of a truce going on with one another. Just like how your favorite sports teams that spread across the same city twice over, like they might be rivals, but they might also be friends on either team, right? I can't tell you how many commercials I've seen where a player from the New York Yankees is having a friendly and maybe playful rivalry type of interaction with a member of the New York Mets. There used to be commercials years ago where then Yankee manager Joe Torre was in Subway commercials with then Met manager Willie Randolph, and they were ordering sandwiches together, and they were given like signals as to what they wanted on their sandwich. And then Willie Randolph brings his sandwich over and says, "I got my favorite sub, fresh toasted." And Joe Torre says, "Why isn't mine fresh toasted?" Randolph goes, "You didn't say you wanted yours fresh toasted." And then Joe Torre goes, "What do you think this meant?" And Randolph says, "I don't know. We don't use that sign across town." So maybe the Shirai Ryu and the Lin Kuei get along, not like the maybe the Shirai Ryu and the Lin Kuei now get along more like the New York Yankees and the New York Mets, whereas in the timelines that we're used to seeing, they get along more like the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox, or the New York Mets and the Philadelphia Phillies, you know what I mean? So that could very well be the case. Their uniforms do look very similar, so who knows? Maybe they're part of the same clan. Maybe Scorpion here is a member of the Lin Kuei, which would mean that the yellow is no longer meant to mock the blue, but maybe it determines rank of some kind, right? Just like in the Power Rangers, you've got the Blue Ranger and the Yellow Ranger, you know? So maybe there's a red Lin Kuei, a green Lin Kuei, and so on and so forth. So either way, it does look like they're on the same page with one another. Maybe the battles they have are not malicious ones, but more like friendly sparring sessions, if you will. So that's pretty good.
But a storm is brewing.
Okay, looks like Melina's stepping outside to have a look, while Kitana's like, "Go on and check it out," right there. And that looks like we have an eclipse, which is actually kind of a nice callback to the commercial for Mortal Kombat Armageddon, when it looks like an eclipse is happening in the sky, and it turns out that it's not the moon, but the Mortal Kombat dragon symbol, and then the guy stands up and goes, "Mortal Kombat!" Well, I can tell you this much. Let's hope it's not the Majora moon from Legend of Zelda, or else everybody's in trouble. It's the size of Texas, Mr. President. That's a different Armageddon altogether.
And soon you will discover
Okay.
that even in this new era,
So we got Great Kung Lao, Raiden, and Liu Kang staring into this portal here. And who emerges from it? None other than
one constant remains.
Shang Tsung.
There is always something worth fighting for.
Who immediately begins going to town on all the characters that we've seen thus far. Including Melina. That's interesting. Now, let's assume that perhaps maybe Shang Tsung did not conjure Melina up. Maybe Liu Kang just willed it that, she's she's part of this realm for other reasons. Like I said, going back to it's Liu Kang's world, he can pretty much have it be whatever he wants. Well, he loves Kitana very much, and maybe Kitana said, in this new era, can you make Melina my friend, or maybe my real sister? So maybe he did, and Melina's Tarkatan teeth may have been the result of being a hybrid of a Edenian human and a Tarkatan, but when it comes to combat, her Tarkatan teeth proved to be a valuable asset, a strong weapon. So she said, all right, she can keep her teeth right there. So when earlier, but again, in order to preserve the double illusion, maybe it was a matter of they were getting to where they needed to go on the street, or maybe they reached the point where they're about to stop, so they can take a look outside. So Kitana probably told Melina, all right, it's time. All right, step outside, but you got to maintain the illusion that you're actually me. So put your disguise back on, that kind of thing. So that's it. Just like how again in Phantom Menace you had Padme Amidala's handmaidens bore a very striking resemblance to her, so that any would-be attackers would think that they are the queen rather than Amidala herself. So there you go. And so, so I guess Shang Tsung might not have any association with Melina in this new timeline, which begs the question as to why is Shang Tsung here anyway? Well, we'll get to that in a moment. Ooh. And he squishes Sub-Zero, and he destroys Kitana. And he saps the soul of the great Kung Lao, but then he tries to challenge Liu Kang, and Liu Kang gives him a big boot to the face, brother. I imagine then he conjures up a series of fire or lightning-themed ropes, bounces off of them, jumps up, and delivers the Liu Kang leg drop, dude. What you gonna do when Fire God Liu Kang runs wild on you, Shang Tsung? That was awesome.
You have chosen to defy peace. Then you have chosen war with a god.
Did anybody catch that reference to Midway's past? Anybody remember the Midway game War Gods? Very clever. Midway presents War Gods, starring Fire God Liu Kang. Ha ha ha. Beautiful. I'm singing in the blood, just singing in the blood. What a glorious day. Shang Tsung chose unwisely. There you have it. It's in our blood. Kind of an interesting alternate take on the old tagline from Mortal Kombat Deception. It's in us all. Now it's in our blood. And look at the release date. September 19th. The day right before my birthday. Oh, Ed Boon. I love you so much, man. You're the best. You're the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. Thank you so much for that beautiful birthday present that you've got set up for me. Pre-order to get Shang Tsung and beta access. Looking at Shang Tsung here, he no longer has a likeness that resembles that of Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa. Instead, he looks more like, what's the gentleman's name who played him in the 2021 movie, the one who also played Lao in The Dark Knight. He looks like him, a little bit more so. Same armor, though, same overall appearance, younger looking, too. So there you go. Now, why in the bluest of blue hacky-doos would Liu Kang bring Shang Tsung into his reality? Well, again, this is Liu Kang we're talking about. Yes, he is, or at this point was, the grand champion of Mortal Kombat and an extremely powerful warrior, but he was also a man with a very strong code of honor. So my thinking is that he brought Shang Tsung into his new reality as a sort of olive branch, a sort of peace offering to him. Like he's giving him another chance. Again, I talked about that warrior's respect that Kitana and Melina had for one another. I think the same holds true for Liu Kang and Shang Tsung as well. That Liu Kang said, Shang Tsung, you and I have warred with each other for many years. The fact of the matter is, you are a supreme warrior, and I am going to give you one more chance to change the narrative of your life. So in my new era, you are free to choose. He will not dictate to him what he could do because, he's a benevolent fire god. He will allow Shang Tsung to make the choice to do good or to just revert back to his old ways. Or maybe Shang Tsung is a blank slate in his own mind. Maybe Liu Kang and Raiden are the only ones who have any knowledge of the past timelines, whereas everyone else is a blank slate here. So, that could be. But I think that's why Liu Kang brought Shang Tsung back, to give him another chance, so to say. I mean, again, ignoring the obvious of Shang Tsung as a popular character, so Netherrealm Studios just wanted to bring him back. I think that's the reason as to why Liu Kang decided to bring him on in. Kind of like, Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant were best of friends and they became enemies, and then there was a truce at one point. Hulk Hogan and Sting feuded with each other like crazy in WCW, but then eventually they decided to team up too, going into their Impact Wrestling days later on. Even towards the end of WCW when they did the whole Millionaires Club thing, and then into their Impact days. And even then they fought against one another, so, the greatest rivalries can also end up becoming the greatest, sometimes ironic, alliances. That's it. Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels. Nobody could have ever imagined that their sometimes heated rivalry would end up resulting in a friendship later on. So, are we going to see an unlikely alliance? Or are we going to see rekindling of an old feud? I think that there's actually the possibility for both. Allow me to explain. Based on what we're seeing and hearing in this trailer, I'm inclined to think that the game's story mode is going to be of a more interactive nature. Whereas up to this point, all the story modes have been pretty linear, like, all roads will lead to the same thing. This time, I think this is going to be kind of a choose-your-own-path adventure. I think we kind of got a hint of this. It wouldn't be without precedent because we did get something of a hint of this in Mortal Kombat 11 when they allowed you to choose which of the two characters in particular situations you would like to fight, right? Like, who do you want to fight Geras? You want Liu Kang to fight him or Kung Lao? Who do you want to fight Frost, Sub-Zero or Scorpion? So they kind of started it with that right there, giving you the choice of which path do you want to take. It would ultimately lead to the same outcome, but just the dialogue would be a little bit different, as well as your choice of character, obviously. But I think here, they're going to take it to a whole nother level. I think they're going to take it to the level where there's a lot more interactivity. It's going to be more like a Knights of the Old Republic style choose your destiny. When all's said and done, will you wind up on the light side or the dark side? So I think that is actually a very interesting ingredient to add to Mortal Kombat right there. I think it could work out very well, to tell you the truth. And it'll keep the game fresh for a long period of time. Because there's other ways you could extend the life of a game other than just by adding downloadable content later on. You can have it be a game that branches off into multiple different paths. That's why Chrono Trigger is one of the greatest role-playing games of all time, because there's so many different endings that you could get, not just one. So perhaps that's one of the things that you could explore in Mortal Kombat 1. All different possible outcomes. Will you end up being a warrior for peace and bringing harmony to everyone involved? Or are you just going to turn everything upside down on its head and just cause chaos for everybody again? The choice is yours, brave combatant. That actually would be pretty cool to see. Alright, so coming up next, we are going to take a look at the latest trailer that has been presented to us. But first, I have a couple of final thoughts regarding what we know up to this point. I guess it would be possible, because one of the things that it talked about in the written description was that we're going to see cameo fighters in the game. Now, this might call to mind assist characters from games like Marvel vs. Capcom and other such games. I'm thinking it could potentially work like that. Or maybe even the assist characters will work in a manner similar to the assist trophies in the Super Smash Bros. Series, where they arrive, they don't just pop onto the screen for a second, do one move, and then jump right off. They arrive, they spend a good 10 to 15 seconds on the battlefield, and then they do a lot of their stuff that they're known for doing, and then they leave. Because I feel like to make a point of saying cameo fighters would indicate that it would not just be a simple off-screen occurrence, like in Mortal Kombat 11, how it says, "Oh, this is Onaga's meteor. This is Su Hao's laser," and you see their attack being carried out. You see their weapon dropping onto the battlefield or flying across the screen, but the character themselves are the character themselves is nowhere to be found. So I feel like you wouldn't heavily promote cameo fighters if you had no intention of showing them. That would be more like a footnote. That wouldn't really be something you'd want to actively promote. You know what I mean? I'm thinking it might work more like the Super Smash Bros. Method, where let's say you have Motaro as a cameo character. You have him appear onto the screen. Either he'll gallop his way on or he'll teleport on. He'll throw a fireball over here, a fireball over there. He'll do a high mule kick over this way, another mule kick that way. Then he'll do his victory pose and belt out one of his Dragon Zord roars. And then he jumps off the screen after that. Really give him some time to shine, not just have him be like, a blink and you miss it type of appearance, which Marvel vs. Capcom had done, or even other games which, you call them on. Even in Mortal Kombat 11, they jump onto the screen, they do one move real quick, and then before you know it, they're gone. No, I feel like they're going to spend a little time. They're going to linger a little bit, get their roses, get their flowers, so to say, take a bow, take a little curtain call, and then skippity-scop off the screen there. So I think that's what they might end up doing. As for who I think the cameo characters will be, well, this is an area where if you really wanted to include so many familiar faces from the past, this might be the way to do it. And I guess the explanation could be given as, well, it's Liu Kang's world. Maybe he's pulling them from different timelines, right? Maybe characters who have yet to be born, that don't exist just yet. He's pulling from years ahead into the future. And also the game makes a point of saying, see your favorite characters like you've never seen them before. Well, we've already seen different motivations here. Scorpion and Sub-Zero appear to be friends now. They say brothers, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a familial term. It can mean, brothers in arms, so to say. Like brothers in combat. Not necessarily related to one another. Or you could, and you've seen like Melina and Kitana appear to be on the same page as well. So, yeah, it's Liu Kang's world, so he can pretty much, pull anybody from any dimension as he's the supreme ruler of all reality now. So, yeah, you could do it that way, and that would actually be a good way of including past characters while not coming at the sacrifice of freshness, that type of thing. Because cameos are fun. You might think, oh, it's just a cameo. Well, cameos could actually leave a pretty strong impression on the viewer. Not just in video games, but in movies, too. We've seen that a lot in TV shows as well. Like, oh, there's that actor from that role right there. Holy cow. remember the movie Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds? When he pulls Captain America's shield and, we hear the Avengers theme music. That by itself was great, but then all of a sudden we cut away to seeing Chris Evans, Captain America himself, sitting in a cafe, a diner there, and he's watching the action unfold on his phone. He's like, what the heck? What? Like that. It's like, that was beautiful. That was really, really cool. So I think that would be a fine way for it to work right there. All right? And we did get, let's go on ahead and proceed to the next thing right here. All right, let's do that.